Yep.
What they say, 43 what?
What?
No, that's it. What they say on your phone?
Right here? This? Elevate.
That's
Yeah.
like a 3.
Yeah, it's backwards.
Oh,
It's
okay.
backwards.
E-L-E, yeah.
Welcome. Every time I walk in this building at LSU, you see the slogan, the pad. So we're going to call this podcast, The Pad with Coach Frank Wilson.
I like it. Yep.
Yeah.
Got a nice ring to it.
Yeah. Because he has an unbelievable pad, and we're going to dive into all of that. I'm Jeremiah Gray, a.k.a. G-Sportz.
Jacob Verdon from the Verdon Verdict.
Coach Frank Wilson.
The Frank Wilson.
Man himself.
Man, we always like to start our podcast off, Coach Frank, man, talking about your journey, man. Mm-hmm. You know, I know you grew up in a cutoff in New Orleans, an area of New Orleans where a lot of kids don't make it out. Just take us back, man, some years ago where the game of football, and when you fell in love with the game of football, and how has it gotten you to where you at today as one of the most prominent coaches in the country?
Yeah, thank you for those kind words. You know, I fell in love with football probably since I was 5 years old, playing novice at Berman for the Green Machine, and then my career, my path as a youth player, going to the cutoff and playing there. So football was always passionate to me. I played all sports, but football had that special something to it for me. And the coaching thing just kind of just happened, right? And probably because I lost my father when I was young, and the coaches that coached me were very influential in my life, and from a spiritual standpoint early on. And Coach Ronnie Red for cutoff for us. And then every other coach. You know, my father was a coach, youth league for me and my siblings when I was younger. And then those other coaches kind of stepped in and did that. As my career as a player at the back end came to an end, it was a coach that said to me, you need to come home and help, right? Mine was a little, I was going to school to be a physical therapist, and I didn't get accepted into medical school. And so my counselors, advisors at Nicholls State told me, come on back, we got to take a couple of more courses. So I got married straight out of college. So as soon as I graduated, my wife and I got married, and I was like, look, I need a job, right? And Bill Robinson, Coach William Robinson, who's our head basketball coach at Etna Carr, who was also my Biddy basketball AAU coach.
He impacted a lot of lives.
Yeah, Big Rob. And so he kind of said to me, well, come back, because my senior year in college, I was injured. And so I became a student assistant. I had no idea it would lead to where I am now at that time. But sport kind of did it. And so I went back, anyway, make a long story short, to Etna Carr to become a science teacher and a football coach. Yeah.
And then you left Etna Carr and then went to St. Aug.
So I went to Carr as a junior high. So I went to Carr in the 80s.
Before it was a high school?
Before it was a high school. Mm-hmm. I went to St. Aug and graduated from St. Aug in high school. My teaching career started at Thibodeau Elementary, then Thibodeau High. That's where I did
stand up.
That's where I did my observations at and student teaching at. And then I became a full-time teacher at Etna Carr.
Gotcha.
So I started teaching at Carr. And so, Brock and Bryce and all the ones, Nick Foster and Etridge Foster and all those guys. I had the pleasure of coaching back then when they were in 7th and 8th grade. The whole staff, Jared Jones,
Yep.
Norman Randall,
Yep.
Brennan, the
Yep.
whole deal. So I was their 7th grade life science teacher. And then I had them again in biology.
Now, I got to ask this because I know people want to know this. Why didn't you transition to the high school at Ennicott instead of going to St. Aug?
It wasn't there.
Oh, so I thought that was the year when they was getting ready to transition into high school.
No, I was already out of high school when it became
Gotcha. Okay.
it became a high school.
Okay.
So back then, everybody would go to Carr Junior High, and on the West Bank, you went to Walker, Landry, and a couple people would go to Shaw. We had a handful of people that went to St. Aug, Sean Jackson, Darren White, myself. We all went to Carr Junior High and then went to St. Aug for high school.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
When we opened this up talking about the path you've been, in a lot of variety of roles, worked with a lot of variety of coaches. How do you think that's helped shape you, your philosophy, and just your viewpoint on the sport?
Tremendously. From a young age, we were talking about Bill Robinson, and he impacted my life tremendously because he spoke things into me by saying something as simple as, "Boy, you're special." Right? And so I kind of looked around like, who you talking about? He was like, you. I was like, man, coach, go ahead with that. And he's like, boy, you're special. And he got me involved. He was my civics teacher. He was my history teacher into student body or student council at the time. And so at Carr, I became a student body president in junior high and then continued through high school, SGA, in college, etc. And so it put me in a position where I was involved in academic games, in speech and debate. And so it required me to be able to articulate myself very well. And I thought that was important and has been an asset for me over the years to eliminate this thing that so many people struggle with called stage fright.
Yep.
And talking to large crowds and how to command a room. And so those things were on-the-job practices that I had at a young age. Right?
An internship in a sense.
Yeah. But it was just a part of my rearing, my upbringing. And so when I got back to Carr, I started off, working with Wayne Foray and Dennis Lohr and those guys with Carr JV junior high, and then the next year I went to varsity, and as we began to ascend, our head coach Don Watney had a heart attack, and by default, as we were transitioning staffs, I became the most veteran offensive guy on the staff, and we carried over Willie Brooks, we carried over Spencer Ross. But everybody else was transitioned, so Ramos and all of those guys, we brought all of them in.
Gotcha.
Right? Ramos had played for Coach Watney at De La Salle and all those good things, right? So anyway, we started building it, and this the mid-late 90s, 96, 97, during that time frame. And so, the development as a coach became monumental because at this time Tommy Bowden and his staff were at Tulane, and we began our growth progression just starting from them. They were very good. The Tulane teams
Sean
back
King,
then, yeah,
Jawan Dawson,
AB, Adrian Burnett, who ironically is the head coach at Franklin Parish, and we've been working. He has some really good athletes there as well. But anyway, those relationships, they maturate over time and allow you to be in position. So the progression started there as a coach, studying with those guys, and it had success. We carried some of those things they did. The whole RPO game, quick game, intermediate games. We were doing at O'Perry Walker at that time, and I was 26, 27 years old. And we were having a lot of success, and it propelled us to win a lot of games, but probably more importantly to help young men get opportunity to go to college. We did it at a very high level, and it's kind of just been a tremendous blessing. Now, it happened because we had guys that had the same mindset of nurturing and developing young people. And so Skip Lamont, Terry Wilson, Byron Wilson, Jabbar Jaluk, Dave Johnson, Franklin Thomas, all these guys went on to be head coaches and have had tremendous success over the years. But that was our core, that was our foundation of our staff. And when I left O'Perry Walker to become the athletic director, by that point, all those guys on those staffs were in position to be high school head coaches. So off our initial staff, like maybe 5 of them became head coaches, when I went on to become the athletic director.
So I want to double back at your time at O'Perry Walker. I graduated in 2003, so I'm very, very familiar with the story, how you brought structure and discipline to O'Perry Walker. You was Coach Carter before there was a Coach Carter, getting guys to come to school wearing a tie, button up. Yeah. And it became a statewide, really a national story on how you changed the mindset of a lot of young African-American young men at that school. Talk about where that came from, and how were you able to implement that in such a short period of time? So
it was the irony is that initially we did it, we wear a shirt and tie on game day, right? And it caught fire. I had a relationship with Miss Chandler Taglaboo. She was the wife of Paul Taglaboo.
The commissioner?
The commissioner.
What's the eyes of that?
Yeah, and so I was working for the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
For the Super Bowl. This is the year Green Bay won it, when Reggie ran around with the trophy, right?
Desmond Howard.
Yeah.
When a kickback? Okay.
Correct. Okay. So I was their host in their suite. She and I developed a relationship. She stayed in touch. We stayed in touch with each other. And there was a program called Play It Smart. It was endorsed by the National College Football Hall of Fame in the NFL. And we became the pilot program for the NFL and college football on promoting time management, ACT, SAT prep. And they funded a person to come work with us. It was a young lady named Angela Kroc that came from Ohio that the NFL paid salary for, and then gave us funding to be able to have structure and organization and how to impact these young people. And so we signed these, 1 year 12, the next year 14, and it's an alarming rate of going to school. And the key was that they were good players, but they were all academically qualified. And so,
I know you took a lot of pride in that point.
Yeah. And so we mastered this NC2A eligibility center. We mastered this test-taking skill. We were demanding but not demeaning in the classroom and on the field with these young men. Now, that's all the pretty part. It wasn't just pretty.
Right.
It was a grind. It was hard. We would get in cars and trucks and pull up at houses and go get them and bring them, and it was different. But that was our mission, to impact their lives, to change their lives, and then some small occasion to save the lives of these young people who were bursting with potential, but just wanted and needed structure and guidance. And so it was a local story that became a national story on Nightline. And here's where the shoes and tie came from. They were still, robbing people of Jordans when they wore them to school, right? And so it's like, we got to change this up, right? And so everybody on the team wore black shoes. You wore black shoes, you wore khaki pants, and we partnered with St. Mary's Uniform Shop, which was in association with Greater St. Mary's Church and Pastor Brown. And so we would do Vacation Bible School with them, the team. We'd go to Vacation Bible School, and in the summer months during this time, they would equip us with Bibles and a spiritual piece with us. And that church, that uniform shop, basically said, listen, we want to work with you, we want to help. And so initially you just wore a shirt and tie, and then we developed a uniform that was a shirt, a white shirt with the school logo, and then we had a blue tie that matched it, and everybody wore khaki pants and black shoes. And this would happen, G, to be honest, we were doing it one day a week. Local superintendent was like, listen, I got somebody coming in town, I'd like to promote this. Could you guys, but they can come on a Wednesday. I said, okay, cool. So we'll wear it on Wednesdays and Fridays. And then it got so much publicity and people wanted to see it, we just made it the uniform. So we were a New Orleans public school that had no uniform policy, that developed a uniform, and it became so impressionable that it became our school uniform. But it wasn't thought, we didn't initiate it to become that. It was just, we wore shirt and tie for game day, then we did it twice a week. And because it got so much publicity, we did it every day of the week, and then it was adopted as our school uniform. So it was a New Orleans public school that had no uniform policy that was adopted by our school, by the leadership of Shane Williams, our principal, who gave his blessing that we can migrate to that. But it was for the safety of the kids initially, and then to let them know that it's okay to be dignified, to be distinguished as a young man, to wear a shirt and teach them how to wear a tie. Now, the roots of that comes from my upbringing at St. Aug, because that's what we did there. And so it wasn't something I just made up. It was something that was poured into me from my days of going to school at St. Aug.
Did you have any pushback from the parents?
No. We didn't have pushback of the parents. We had, because we were having success on the field and off the field, we bought in. And so we had a tremendous parent booster club that, for us, we fed the kids, right? So we had a pregame meal at this New Orleans public school. At that time, we had a post-game meal for the students.
That wasn't common back then.
Yeah, and so we used the whole everybody go to Nichols State football camp. We started it. We would go to Nichols for 5 days for camp, and we lived in the dorms. We lived a certain way, and it was bonding. It was football, but we would do this segment called From a Brother's Heart, where the seniors would get up and they would speak about they would give their testimonial of what it was, what it meant to them to be a part of this team and how it impacted their life. And then we take an older guy and group him with a younger guy, a big brother, little brother program, to develop the culture that we wanted our team to have.
That's dope.
Yeah.
How do you think it, like getting everyone to see the bigger picture, whether it be unlocking potential in them from an athletic or academic standpoint, like you was talking about pushback, like how do you get the kids to see, all right, this is going to lead to a greater purpose, a greater cause?
Yeah, I think early on we had guys, Ty Brown, who went to UL Lafayette. We had Carl Davis, who went to Tulane. And so it was cool to get a scholarship, right? And that you could go wherever you want to go. And so I think the testaments of those who came before them, when they saw it, it was something that they wanted, right? And so college became a reality, not something that was so far-fetched that you couldn't touch it and feel it. And so I just think that the living proof of, if this is what you want, this is how it can happen for you, became a reality. And the interesting thing, my time at Walker, Carr was our rival. My time at Carr, Perry Walker was our rival. And it was classics now. Back in those days, very competitive. It was, but respectful, great sportsmanship, but toughness. And I would share those things with those kids at Perry Walker, because during my time at Carr, we thought we could beat O'Perry Walker on things at discipline, right? Because at Carr, and ironically on this day, we're having this interview last night at 2 a.m. Al Ott, Coach Ott,
I heard, man.
Legendary coach from Etna Carr, who coached all of us when we were a junior high, who played on the 1958 national championship team here, passed away.
Yep.
And that was our slogan, discipline.
Condolences to his family.
Yes, sir. Jimmy Ott and that family. But everything that we did in those things was based on discipline. And it's how I was reared in coaching and as a player. So when I got to O'Perry Walker, we would say to the players, here's what they think. When the game get on the line, we'll lose it before we win it because of discipline. But you have discipline, and you are capable, and you're good enough. And being you will be good enough, but it's going to require your very best. And we just identified with that. We lived it. We talked it. We incorporated, like we ate breakfast together. We all got there in the morning. We had breakfast, what we call breakfast club. We ate breakfast together. We prepared for the day together. Before we went to practice, we had study hall. All right, so everybody knocked out their homework, and then we practiced. And it became our lifestyle and everything that we did.
As I look on this wall, I see so many iconic LSU players that just made so many memories, not only here at LSU, but in the NFL. As you know, Coach Frank, you've seen a ton of talented people that's on that wall that did not make it.
Yeah.
Why is it that we have some athletes that come through that have just as much talent as a Odell Beckham or Jamar Chase or Joe Burrow, but they just can't find the necessary steps to not only be successful on a football field, to be able to make it to that next level, but in life.
Yeah, so what do we define as making it? For me, I had aspirations just like every other young person. I want to be a pro. But that wasn't God's plan for me to be a pro. And I believe this. I think people go a lifetime trying to find their purpose.
Yep.
What is my purpose in life? And I'm very fortunate that in what seemed to be so such a downfall and letdown because I was injured. I became a young father. I got married. And so here pro football wasn't for me. But my calling was adhered to, that God wanted to use me to impact the lives of young people. And in my mind, that was my success ordained, right? This is your mission. This is what you're set to do. And then there's those who become successful in their endeavors, right? So if their desires to be a pro, is being a pro defined as success? I thought our time, and I'm jumping around here, but I thought our time when I was the head coach at UTSA was successful, although it didn't always resonate with wins and losses, but success in setting people up. And so when I look at the young men that we impact who are working in corporate America, and I look at Tariq Woolen, who's an all-pro. I look at Marcus Davenport, who's a top 15 pick. And Sincere McCormick, the starting running back for the Raiders. So there's 10 of them in the NFL. That was a startup program that 10 years ago didn't even exist, right? And we did it the right way. We built it, but it wasn't meant for me to be lauded, patted on the back, and said, "Man, look how great you were. You guys won a bowl game. Yeah, we got there. We qualified. We did good things." And these young people had their moment, right? But it wasn't destined for me to be the coach to make them, at that time, a top 25 program, although they became one because the seeds and the foundation that and so it's hard for people to accept that.
For sure.
It's hard for people that I would even have people say to me, "Man, don't you resent that? Here this guy's winning with the talent that y'all bought in." It's in God's timing. It happened just the way it was supposed to be used there to go to McNeese in the midst of this thing that the world had never seen called COVID, to overcome Hurricane Laura, Hurricane Delta, in a city, in a township where it was very, very difficult, right? And so I established businesses there that my children benefit from, and from a corporate standpoint.
Yep.
So they're there, and that was that mission. So it was successful there in a very difficult time for society in that program as well. And so here I go full circle. I'm back here, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. But they're scars. I guess they're not wounds. They're not open. I'm not hurting. I'm not depressed because of them. They're scars because you learn from them. You're better because of it. And I think when we as individuals can recognize that what do you define as success? Going to the
For
NFL,
sure.
earning your degree, a combination of both, impacting the lives of someone. What is it? And so there are a lot of guys. Here's a true statement: the best players don't always play on Sundays.
For sure.
It takes more than just talent alone is not enough.
At all.
Right? Talent alone is not enough. That it takes all the other things that are aligned, that you prepare yourself for, to have that opportunity to play in the NFL or become successful in another endeavor. And that could mean simply as being a good husband and being a good father.
What can we do as a culture, though? This is some conversations that I've been having a lot. I've been having a lot of conversations with kids, families, about having an identity outside of the sport. Because like you just talked about, what is success? They think, if I don't make it to the league, I'm a failure.
Correct.
So what can we do as a culture to start planting these seeds early to get these kids to understand, like, if I make it to the league, that's just lanyard.
Yeah. So that's a broad question. That's a great question, because we have guys who have been first-round draft picks, second-round draft picks, that's played in an NFL and don't get a second contract, and ashamed to come into this building. And they're like, you don't have to be ashamed. You were a success. No, I'm embarrassed that cope and deal with this depression, this anxiety in this world that we now know very clearly as mental health and challenges that they deal with, that we identify what that looks like, what success looks like. What is it that you want in life, all right? And so the more it's talked about and not just pushed to the background, and because being a pro is difficult.
For sure.
Getting there is difficult. Staying there is even more difficult. And so I think self-awareness, I think goal setting and life talks are critical, that you can't just base it on whether you play in the NFL or not. We have there's guys on that wall that have had great NFL careers, that have had a second contract, that right now I have conversation with about what does it look like as I move forward with my life. Can I? And they struggle with it because they're not the star anymore. They're older. They're 10 plus years in the NFL. And society would think, oh man, he's great. No, he's not great. He's hurting because he doesn't know what it is in the normalcy of living in this world, not being the superstar, not having the commercial, not having the brand. Although he's very successful and on the outside view that way, it comes from self-confidence, self-awareness of what you're trying to achieve.
For sure.
How important do you think it is to love the process, the chopping wood, the carrying your water? Even if it might not be your moment yet, how do you stay locked in and just keep pushing, keep going? Yeah,
I think that's important, and I think it's lost that the process of attaining it is as worthy as the achievement itself, right? That a lot of people may look at me where I'm at now, and I have young coach, I won't be where you're at now. And I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea, right? Of what and I'm no better than the next person, but it hasn't just been that easy, right? And so for me, We get fired at Ole Miss, right? I go to Southern Miss. 2008, the market crash. It's dismal in America. And it's very challenging because I own a home in Oxford. I moved my family to Hattiesburg. I have 2 mortgages, and I've taken my salary at Southern Miss is a pittance of what it was at Ole Miss. So I'm going from the SEC, an SEC coach, to a Conference USA coach. But on top of that, from a money market standpoint, our market has collapsed. And so it's diminished. And so these hundreds of thousands of dollars that you had put away, no longer. Right? So what do you do now? All right, what do you do now at this point? And I could recall, and I don't have a problem sharing, us using one car community, because gas was astronomical, $5, $6, whatever it was at that time. And to fill the car up and to go here, and the kids got, their gymnastics and softball and baseball and this. How does that look? And so nobody sees those, that hollow, that hurt, those unscreamed words for help. You hold it in, and you weather it, right? And you go through this very difficult times that nobody will ever know. But people will then want to pass judgment and have opinion, and you hear people often say, like, you don't know my struggle. Like, you really don't. You just on the outside looking in, but you don't know what I just went through. You don't know when I was at it in the car and catching the bus, all right, to go to Tulane, to catch the General Maya, to get off the General Maya on Canal, to walk across the street to Krause, to go to you don't, to get a transfer, to get a ticket, to go study football. You don't know that.
Right.
You just see this and assume it just happened.
Right.
Right. It didn't just happen. It didn't just happen for us or for anyone, right? And so that's the story of the grind, and it's but it's not the publicized, right? I've never advertised, put it out there. I'm getting it out the mud. I went through this. I don't speak those things. That's not how I present it. I just go about doing my work, doing God's work, to try to impact, make a difference, work diligently on impacting lives and having success where you're at. So for me, my greatest challenge is this. I work very hard at my job. Outside of my job, I try to be a good husband. I try to be a good father, grandfather to my 2 grandkids. And then I try to be a good son to my mother and a good sibling. But I don't necessarily make it to the second line or to the DJ or to this. And so perception is, who do he think he is? I never see him out. Man, you don't have time. So this thing called time, the most precious thing that God has given us, choose it wisely, right? With the people who you love most and who depend on you most. And so perception and reality sometimes clash of what society's expectation of where you should be and what you should do in the midst of you being totally immersed in your job and your family, in those things that are most critical. And so it hurts me that I'm not always the best friend or the best guy from the neighborhood, because my time doesn't always allow me to do so, because I'm doing my job at LSU to the best of my ability, and it's a job of service. So it requires time beyond your imagination, that you're always on call, right? You're always on call. And so, and you got to be willing to do that. You got to be willing to do that to be the best. To be the best, it's simple. There's no secret remedy. You got to outwork everybody.
I had a coach that told me this a couple of years ago. He said, and it kind of it aligns into what you just said. It could take over a decade to have overnight success.
Oh, that's true.
And
that's so true. You have to sow your seeds.
Yeah, for sure. And you've been in the game for over 20 years, and to see where you at now, I'm thinking it back on all your different stops, all your different trials and tribulations, and like you said, like people don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and they don't understand your process, your path, if you will. And so when you talk about people trying to find their calling, trying to find their purpose, what would your advice be to somebody that's trying to figure that out in their life?
Yeah, two critical things you just said. So when you put that in the time frame, right? So I became the head coach at Old Perry Walker in 99, 2000. So that's not even including my time at Core or when I was a GA. So it's 2025 now, right? Right. And so there's no overnight success, right? And I think it's important that you be where your feet are. You work your job to the best of your ability, because if there's something out there for you, it'll come from what you're doing currently. And I think so many times people are in a position working a job, piercing over the fence of, I want that. Can I have that? And they lose sight of where they're at. When I was a high school coach, I wanted to be the best high school coach ever, right? I didn't think when I was a high school coach, man, if I do this, I can get to college. I never thought that. They took Ed Ogeron, who I was played for and student assistant for at Nicholls State, that says to me, hey, T-boy, when I come back, I'm going to be a head coach. I'm coming to get you. And I was like, all right, we'll see. We'll see. And as fate would have, in the fall or spring of 2004, going to 2005, he calls me. I'm the athletic director for the school district. And he says to me, I'm going to be the head coach at the University of Mississippi. I want you to come with me. And I'm like, stop playing. He's saying, no, I'm serious. Go to Millionaires Airport. At the airport, Archie Manning will be waiting for you. And come on the plane. This is the same year USC is playing for the national championship with Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, all those guys. And so I catch a plane, go there, and the rest is kind of history. So a true blessing that goes from being a high school athletic director for a school district to becoming an SEC coach, but truly from a high school coach to coaching in the SEC. But it didn't just happen. Right. All right. So the entire time I was a high school coach, I would try to get minority internship opportunities with the NFL. No. I almost took a job at Millsaps College and decided not to. I almost came to LSU. I almost went to UL Monroe. I almost, and it just wasn't meant to be at those times. And then it just happened. And God's timing. And so I stopped chasing or looking for a job. And I just wanted to be the best at where I was. And so when I was athletic director, we did the same thing, same approach. How do you become the best athletic directors or athletic department in Louisiana? And so we revamped all of that, from health and wellness to working with the State Board of Education and from a dietary standpoint, when obesity was considered an epidemic, and we're no longer going to use lard to cook what we're going to use corn oil or canola. All of that. We changed the vending machine. Like, people don't even know that, right? Like, we changed the vending machines and everything. We took pork skins out of that, Right. For real. All of those things is a part of my journey that I was a part of. But I think in finding your purpose, what gives you a wholeness? What makes you complete, right? And for me, for every young man that was able to go on to college and have success, for every coach that was able to be on our staff that was able to go on and have success, for every administrator that left Old Perry Walker and went to UNO and went to Dillard, and everybody was having success, right? And so whether it was the person who made the T-shirts for us, or the beanies, or where we got our food pregame, everybody became a shareholder, right? And so the strength came in numbers and community. And so everything that we did involved the masses. And so Old Perry Walker's success was a direct correlation of the community, of a city that says, you know what, we can. In spite of what they've always said, we can.
Algiers America.
Man, and you go to a state championship game against John Curtis. Is one of the pictures that sits in JT office today. You'll go by and see it. There's 56,000 people there. 56,000 people.
And they hold 62.
Yeah, it's 56, and they, with the gumbo crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dive in that gumbo.
So it was all of those things. Stories to behold. But I think we just lived in our truth. We lived in our minute, our moment. And I think when a person is trying to find their purpose, they got to find what is it that gives them completeness.
Yeah.
Along your journey, getting offered different opportunities, or trying to decide what path you're going to go down. How do you think you weigh that? And they're like, all right, this is the right decision for me. This is
that's
where I'm
hard.
supposed to be.
Yeah,
that's difficult.
Great question. So I think there's a couple of things, 3 or 4 things that you choose a job for: professional, upward growth, financial growth, and family. And so if you could get all 3 of those, if professionally you can move up and attain a financial piece that makes sense for your family, and that your family are in alliance with it, I think it's a win. Sometimes it may be one of those 3, right? So I've stayed at jobs at times for a certain length of time because I wanted one of my kids to graduate from high school because we had moved too many times already. There's been times that I've taken a job. I went to Tennessee. I left Mississippi State after a month and went to Tennessee because my wife didn't want to live in Starkville. She just, and I couldn't find schooling for my kids that I thought was adequate in Mississippi during that time without an hour commute to Tupelo or wherever we would have gone. And so I made more money at Mississippi State than I did at Tennessee. But at Tennessee, I thought, I talked to Tony Dungy, right? Tony Dungy was friends with Monty Kiffin, Lane's dad. And, Lane being who he is, he got them all recruiting me to come to Tennessee. And I'm like, I don't know. Of course, Coach O's already there. He's on the staff. We're establishing our staff, putting the staff together. And I go there as the receivers coach, passing game coordinator. But initially, I turned the job down. And I was going to stay at Mississippi State because they were paying me more. And my wife says to me, please don't make us stay here. Please. And so I'm talking to Coach Dungy, who I admire tremendously. And he says to me this thing about relationships and networking. And, there's guys on that staff, Frank, that I think could help you, not just now, but long term, that have NFL experience. Jim Chaney was our offensive line coach. Ed was there. Eddie Grant was there. We had NFL, and it was who's who, all-star staff, right? And he basically conveys to me, don't chase the money. Go where you're going to grow professionally best. I'm not telling you what to do. It was him and Mike T that called me, and all of them, had some time with Monty. So Mike Tomlin and Tony Dungy are the 2 guys I consulted. And they just gave perspective. They didn't tell me to go to Tennessee. They just gave me an outlook of your circle, your networking professional circle. And it was difficult because I was Dan's first hire, Mullen. And I actually was living with him at the time until I found a place. And so I left Mississippi State to go to Tennessee, where I made less money, but I thought professionally it would help me grow greater in my overall view of offensive philosophy, offensive football. So I think you have to take those things in consideration and weigh them for yourself. And I think at different times, one could be greater than the other. Like I left Southern Miss to go to Mississippi State financially.
Right.
Like I was drowning.
Right.
Like I can't stay here.
Right.
You know, I think I might have been making $75,000, 65. You know, like I can't do this. You know,
Right.
It was a half of what I made at Ole Miss at that time. And so financially, I left Southern Miss to go to State. Professionally, I left Mississippi State to go to Tennessee. And I think that you have to put those things in consideration when you're moving.
I think you've done a great job. I'm gonna take it a step further. I think you have done a phenomenal job of identifying under the radar talent. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about the Tyrann Mathieu story and how he was able to get the offer from LSU. Because I remember back then, a lot of big schools thought he was too small, thought he wasn't fast enough. What did you see, and how did you identify that he could play at this level?
So I'm at Tennessee when the crew come up, right? Jab bring a van up there, Dave bring a van up there, Kyle bring a van, and so it's Louisiana sends on Knoxville, right? And so from Munchie Lego to Trey Turner to Jeremy Hill to Tyrann Mathieu, Jarvis Landry, Trayvon Reed. Everybody's in Knoxville, right? And so it's kind of a reunion there. And I'm coaching the receivers. And we have some of the top receivers from in America there. And I don't know if Tyrann knows, I'm standing with Joe Montana. His son, Nick Montana, is one of the quarterbacks there. And Tyrann's making play after play after play. And he's like, whoa, look at this kid. And I was like, I know, huh? Right? And so he just keep making plays. We go up to staff meeting after. And I present Tyrann to the staff. And Ed, who was one of my mentors and good friends at Ogeron, goes, he's too small. And I was like, Coach, he's the best player here. It's simple. Every receiver that we want, he just clamped him.
Right.
All right. The only one that gave him a run was Jarvis, who was an underclass, a year younger than him, but he was an animal in the camp.
For sure.
Right. And so we go back and forth about Tyrann. And then shortly thereafter, I leave and I come here. And Tyrann's been identified, but not necessarily offered. But the hype that he got at the Tennessee camp now makes him more visible. Like what they see, we didn't see. And we go all in to get Tyrann and start our recruitment of him. But he was at the Tennessee camp going into his senior year. He was 5'8" and a quarter, right at 5'9". He was 148. Right? But he was, now he'll tell you 152. So I'll give him that somewhere like that. All right. I remember a couple of years ago we texted, I say 148, and I think he texted back, no, 152. So I'm going to give him 152. Right. All right. He was there.
Right.
But he is the most instinctive football player, naturally gifted, aware, short area quickness, explosive. He had all the intangibles that people train to get. Start, stop, change of direction, ankle, knee, hip flexion, fluidity, ball skills, toughness, resilience. He had it all. Years later, I'm here. So this about, I guess, 2011, 2012. I'm talking to Lane, and he was at wherever, and I said to him, he said, you were right. You were right about Tyrann Mathieu. And I said to him, I wish I could have cut him open and you would have seen how big his heart was, because that is what you could never measure. And to me, Tyrann Mathieu is all heart, extremely talented, but all heart. And he has it. He has it because he defied all the logic from a length and a size and a weight standpoint. And he'll have a chance, in my opinion, to wear a gold jacket when it's all said and done.
Most definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So the day he got the offer, how did that go about though?
I don't remember.
I think it was something about everybody was on the practice field, and then y'all took them all into the indoor or something, and y'all called it opportunity.
Yeah, so opportunity period. That's what we used to call.
Yeah.
You talking here or Tennessee?
Here.
Yeah. So Ron Cooper was our secondary coach at the time. Ron had always coveted him and identified Tyron and thought he was worthy of it as well. We just needed to get John Chavis, Coach Miles, and everybody else on the same page. And so he was that, right? He was that in opportunity period. You would have camp, and then the best of the best would come for one-on-one sessions.
He used to go down in there.
Oh, and it used to go down.
He used to go down in there.
It was ultra competitive, and you got to see the cream rise to the top. And as it would be, Tyron was that in that setting as well.
When you're coaching somebody like that, how hard is it? Maybe not hard, but like how do you balance the scheme and then letting them play off instinct? Because I'm sure there's a lot of things that he could just do like that.
Yeah. So I tell this story. We're playing Georgia in the SEC championship game, and we're struggling offensively, right? And so I have the offense up on me, and I'm kind of Cameron's up top. And I'm saying to Tyron, I'm saying to the offense, we got to get going. And he's like, say coach. And I was like, not right now. Not now. Right? And so I'm talking to the offense, and they punt the ball to us, and he returns a punt, the magnificent one you see. And he comes to the sideline with the ball, and he flips it to me, and he goes, "Shh, I got you." And I'm like, "Boy, it's a bad boy here." And I'm like, unbelievable. And he changed the game.
Yeah.
Right. And what he was trying to say to me was, "Coach, chill out. I got it.
Right.
I got it." And as a coach, you wanna will yourself onto the players. So I'm like, "We gotta go. Get off the ball." I'm saying that he's trying to explain to me, "I got it." Right? And I'm like, not right now, T. Not right now. And the next possession, they punt it to us. He scores. He flips me the ball, kind of does that, pat himself on or pop himself in the chest and say, I got you. I got you. And I just looked at him like, wow. And then he did it again the next series.
Yeah.
The next punt. And, he just played the game of his life. But he would do those things. You would see him where the defensive staff be like, Tyron, stay there. What is he doing? Go. He got it. And come to the sideline. It's like, why'd you do that? And he just like, I felt it.
Because one of them,
felt it.
It almost kind of looked like he could have muffed it.
Yeah, it did. And but he was courageous. He was talented and legendary here.
And these other guys, the Mike Wallaces, the Marcus Davenports, these guys that people are really not looking at in high regard.
Yeah.
You see something in these guys, and they go on to play at a high level. And I know you probably don't want to give everybody your nuggets, but what are you looking at when you find these diamond in the rough like that?
They're all different. Like Tariq Woolen was size and speed and gifted, and I remember moving him from we signed him as a receiver, but projected him as a DB. And his high school coach, his mom, his dad called me and was like, "What are y'all doing? Why would you ever change him?" And I was like, "Do you think I would tell you wrong? He's a pro. He's a pro. I'm telling you, he's a pro. He has it." And sometimes I think years of seeing it, that you have this uncanny ability with discernment.
Yeah.
To be able to project. I think you can see a kid who's very talented. That Leonard Fournette from Go was, oh my,
Yeah.
Oh my! Like from a freshman, he's bigger, faster, stronger than everybody. He's going to be dominant. If God says the same and he stays healthy. So there was no secret to Leonard Fournette.
Right.
He was dominant from go, and it was in his DNA. Marcus Davenport, who was a receiver, basketball player, tight end, outside backer,
Skinny.
yeah, you know. So here's what people don't know: his dad went to Abramson.
Never knew that.
His grandfather was the track coach at Suno.
Never knew that. So he had Louisiana ties.
So he was a military kid that went to San Antonio.
Gotcha. Because they got a beast out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Never knew that.
Yeah. So that's how that connected. but still, in his case, he was a projection, right? DJ Chark was a projection.
Another
right?
one, yup. Mike Wallace.
Russell Gage, Mike, they were all projections, and it was people didn't see it. So Mike was with me at Carr, and came to Walker,
Right.
but he never played at Carr.
Right.
It was just love and bond and family, and we going to Walker, and so we had several students. You know, one of the leading doctors in Texas now. She was in Jackson, Mississippi. A young lady named Kenya McDavis, who my wife and I took in. We, I just walked her down the aisle this past fall. She got married, but she one of the best, pediatric doctors in the country right now. She was at Carr and left and came to Walker with us and became our valedictorian. And so we had this connection that some of the students who weren't even just football players left Carr and came with us to Walker.
That's fine.
Right? Mike was one of those guys. He was studious. He was talented. But he didn't leave Carr to come to Walker to be a superstar. It was in him. We didn't quite know it. And we get to practice and we're running sprints and we're doing different things. And he's the fastest one over and over and over again. Right? And so in his underclassman year, we play him as an edge rusher. Just because there's no high school.
Hold up. Y'all had Mike playing edge rusher?
He was an edge rusher. Because they couldn't block him.
Right.
Just go get him, right? We're playing Culver, we're playing Clark, and we need speed. And so we just sending him off the edge. And he's sack after sack after sack. That's what he...
That's crazy. I never knew that.
Because we had Buster Davis, we had Milton Collins, we had Darryl Johnson, we had Junior Joseph. We were loaded, and he was younger than those guys, as talented, just uncovered at that time. We didn't know. But his speed was the piece that caught your attention. And then you saw him go vertical, and it was like something you've never seen. Oh my God, what do we have here, right? And so he became that guy for us, and committed to Oregon State.
Because that's where Keenan went.
Keenan, Mike, and Dennis Christopher.
Yep, Dennis showed did.
So they all
Sure
committed to Oregon State. When I decided to go the following year, I left Ole Miss. I left being at the school district, went to Ole Miss. So when we started school in the fall, Mike came with me to Ole Miss. Keenan and Dennis stayed at Oregon State.
That's a crazy story. Never knew. I got a clown about that when I said it. Edge rusher?
Oh, he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. But he...
what number you want?
Probably 80 something. I don't know. He moved to 2 his senior. We moved him to 2 his senior year. But he was 80 something. Keenan, they all were.
Keenan, another one.
Yeah, Keenan was
another one.
They were all late bloomers.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they didn't step on the field. And again, we're very talented. You Junior Joseph went to school here. Carl Davis went to Tulane.
Travis Berry. Went to Colorado, I think.
Went to Colorado. Maurice Runnels, Oklahoma State.
Dominique Cooper
Went
to
came
LSU,
here.
yep.
So all of those guys, they were a year or two ahead of Mike and Keenan, and the baby of the bunch was Kendrick Lewis.
Yeah.
But we saw, Kendrick was that way at Gregory Junior High School, and he played for a guy named Big S, Shelton, who was a good friend of mine, Shelton Briscoe, and or Big S was his mentor, his father figure, who went to Nichols with me. So he and Jeremy McGee, right?
Jeremy McGee was a dude.
So we tried to get them both at Walker, I got Kendrick, and Jabbar, who had left us at this time, got Jeremy at Carr. Right. Ultimately, they both came to Ole Miss.
Yeah. And then he went to UCLA, huh?
He went to UCLA initially,
and then he came to Ole Miss. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I think it's just projecting, and there's no exact science to it. John Chavis and I got into about as heated argument as you could imagine behind Russell Gage. Staff and I with DJ Chark. We went to see Brandon, our quarterback. Brandon Harris, Parkview, beat the crap out of Ash. I'm talking about 70-7. And there's a skinny kid just making plays like, who's that? Right? And it was DJ. And we brought him to camp, and he shined, and came back to the next camp, and he shined, came back to the third camp. It was like, we should offer him. But they were 0 for 10. Alexandria High went 0-10. And got beat 70-7. But he showed enough that made us say we should take him. And we took him, and he wound up being the number 7, and here's years later, he's still in the NFL.
Yep, doing his thing. My last question for you, Coach Frank, before we let you get out of here. What's your end game, bro? I know you did a ton of guys' work throughout your duration of your career. Touched a lot of lives. But when it's all said and done, and you ready to say, look, I'm done coaching, what does the rest of your life looks like?
Yeah, for me, I look at Levanta Davis and success he's having at St. James, who didn't play for me, didn't coach with me, but he's a young man from the neighborhood who has played in 3 state titles, right, and done an outstanding job at St. James. Did the same thing when he was here at Southern Lab. You look at Robert Valdez, you look at Nick Foster, you look at Bryson, who is arguably one of the best coaches in America.
For sure.
I think is the cream of the crop and elite in our state. He has reset the bar, the standard of what excellence looked like in consistency. And so I admire that from afar and can watch that and have great respect and admiration from it. For me, I enjoy that. I enjoy other people's success as much as I enjoy my own success. I take it day by day, right? And so once upon a time, I wanted to be the head coach here. I wanted to go here. I'm at a point in my career now that I'm happy. My family's happy. When I decided to come back here, Coach Kelly and I talked, and he was like, you would consider staying at McNeese and really not come back to LSU? And I had been a head coach at this point for 5, 6, 7 years, a Division I head coach. And I was like, Coach, I don't know if I want to get back in that, right? It's because it's rugged now. You got to have your big boy trousers on to come coach in this league. But God saw it fit. I'm happy. I'm in a good place. I wouldn't trade it anything in the world for being here at LSU. I think it is the ultimate job.
Dream job.
For me, So I have no desire to go to another place right now. I'm just in the business of doing what God has called me to do, to be used to impact and change and help the lives of these young men, this organization, represent for the state of Louisiana. And wherever that takes me, I'm fine with it. But I'm happy. I'm in a good place.
Hold up, I do have one last question. I like to always ask coaches this because I like to get different perspectives. How do you manage family time and being the best that you can be as LSU's running back coach?
Yeah. So
I think that's a difficult task in a sense.
It is, and we kind of touched based on it early on. So, for me, it's as you know, my job is so much bigger than being a running back coach, right? And I welcome it, I embrace it, and my role that Coach Kelly has allowed me to play in, being here again to serve this university, to serve the kids, and so. I think that it's always as the kids would say, it's always up, right? I'm always prepared for whatever might happen. I'll take, like this week, I'm going to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I have gymnastics for my granddaughter. I got Little League baseball for my grandson. I'll come back. I'll work early next week. And this is my vacation time. I'll come back next week. I'll work early in the week. And then the back end of the week, I'm going to take a family couple of days off, a long weekend, early week, then get back in here. And then from that point on, it's preparation, for the through July all the way into camp in August, and we'll go. But that's my point in saying there's not much time outside of doing my job and the family time I have to do other things, right? And so I don't go to the ESPYs. I'm not going to the red carpet. I don't go to the BET Awards, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things.
Right.
I just don't have the time to do those things, and so I do the things that are most important to me. It's my job and my family, and I try to do that to the best of my ability, and I manage it as well as I can. But the reality is, I'm an imperfect man.
Yeah. For
and
sure.
so, yeah.
Favorite football player all time?
Whoa. I don't have one favorite. I think they all have their moments. Boy, there's a lot of them, right? You
Like a childhood favorite?
Oh, that I like, not player that I coach.
No, like your childhood favorite.
Walter Payton.
Favorite coach all time?
Eddie Robinson.
Like that one. Favorite music artist?
Otis Redding.
Otis Redding. I don't know that one.
I'm gonna put you on.
Yeah, put me on. Put me on.
Yeah.
Favorite place to visit?
I'm a beach guy. So some part of Florida, whether it's Naples, whether it's Destin, where there's some part of Florida.
Favorite food to eat? Well, favorite place to eat in the city?
Ooh, you get me in trouble there now. I love Creole cuisine. I like Italian as well. It just kind of depends on the appetite for the moment. If it's just a po' boy or a sandwich, or if it's a sit down. So I guess the answer would be depend on
The ambiance, if it's ambiance or not?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Katie's.
Katie's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there.
I love Katie's.
I went there in May when recruiting. Sat outside in May and ate at Katie's. Yeah.
Favorite sneaker growing up?
So here's the interesting thing. It's six of us. My father passed away when I was in the 5th grade. So it's my mother and all of us, right? And my mom worked hard to provide for us. And so I was always very conscientious not to ask for what we couldn't have. So I always wanted a pair of Jordans. But I never had a pair.
Never? What?
No.
Hold up. Was it because you didn't want to get them took from you?
No. So one thing I could do, even growing up, I could fight now, G.
You better have coming from the cutoff.
You can get those stories if you want them. No, I just didn't. I didn't have them, right? I didn't have it, so I watched them. I had other style tennis shoes, but still till today, I don't own a pair of Jordans.
We have to get you one.
Yeah, man. We got to make that happen, bro.
Yeah, I got a little change I could give it. I just right now, I predominantly wear shoes that are conducive for my feet,
For
right?
sure.
And so, Sauconys, or as we grew up calling Sauconys.
Yeah. Then they came back.
Yeah.
Time be repeating itself.
Just shoes that fit me with comfort is what I wear. I don't necessarily wear them for just style. I'm not a tennis shoe head in that regard. So I guess just Nike running shoes.
Gotcha. Favorite movie of all time?
It'll be Godfather, American Gangster, a gangster movie.
You could have played Frank Lucas. You could have played it.
It's one of those type of movies.
You could have played it. You could have played it. Last one.
Okay.
If you wasn't coaching football, what would Frank Wilson be doing with his life?
So here's what my plan. Before I ever got a college scholarship, my plan was to go into the military and then become a part of the JAG program so I could become an attorney.
Oh, cool.
So I was going to use the military to go into the JAG program to go to law school.
I could see you doing that.
So that was my plan. Once I got in college, it kind of changed for me because of sport and because the one thing I was good in was science, right? And so the human anatomy, the physiology of the body and the muscles and tendons and ligaments and how they work, you know, how we see, how we think, and how we sense, and all of that became piqued my curiosity. That no different than we could take this camera and zoom in and zoom out. We got this little elastic band or muscle, if you will, called a ciliary muscle that allows our lens to go in and out and focus, and it stretches back and forward till it becomes pointed and concave or convex. And so all of the things, and as I'm speaking to you, that your brain, your ears hear sound vibrations, but your brain decodes them as words. And so when you're an infant, that's why everything is gaga goo goo, because your brain is not developed. And so we don't hear words, we hear sound vibrations, and our brain decodes it as a word. And so those type of things were
interesting to you.
Very interesting to me, right? And so when it comes to the human body, that was my interest. So probably now it would be something in dealing with physical therapy, the human body, psychologically as well as from a physical standpoint. So that's my education background, right? And so all the guys, Bryce and all of them know me as their science teacher.
Right.
Right? But at a young age, I wanted to be a lawyer.
For sure. I know it took about 2 years for us to get this done.
Yeah, you know, you finally got to me.
Finally got a hold of you.
And I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I think what you do in our community, in our state, is monumental in extending a platform and voices that are not always heard, and with time and dedication that truth could be spoken. Because for a lot of us, people go by what they say or I heard. And I applaud you for giving so many people a platform and an opportunity to speak their truth, for us to share our testimonies with our community, with our state, and with people all across not just this state, this region, and this country of who we are and how we've grown into this profession and what we do on an everyday basis.
Nah, I appreciate that, Coach Frank. I know how busy you are, man. So for you to take this time to fellowship with us and talk about your path, and kind of give people an insight on who you are, not just as a football coach, but Frank Wilson, the person. And I really appreciate that, man. We got to get you back on in the near future, though.
Love to be back. Appreciate you. Thanks so much for having me. Of course.
This is G-Sportz, man. We signing out with the path with Coach Frank Wilson.
I got one question. Can I get a shirt?
Oh, yeah, you for sure can get a shirt.
All right.
For sure get a shirt, man. Oh, my guy, man. My guy. You definitely got that. I got you.
Don't play.
Don't play.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I appreciate
Thank you for your time, sir.
All right.
That was a good one, Coach.
Did you know I was a science teacher?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to high school?
H.L. Bourgeois.
You went to HL. Yeah, you was with my man, Clyde.
Clyde.
Me and Clyde was in the backfield together.
Clyde coached me.
Yeah.
Eighth grade,
man. Yes, sir.
8th grade basketball. Yeah, really.